Yusha, welcome to the Better Project podcast. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day, because I know you got a busy day today. And I just wanted to, first of all, express my gratitude for you, because you could have easily said, nah, I'm busy. But for you to turn up, man, I have huge respect. So thank you and welcome, man.
Always, man. It's a pleasure. It's 7:30 in the morning.
That's it, man.
Saturday?
Friday.
I don't even have a concept of time.
Bro, for people who don't know you, right? Because they look on your social media and they see that you run the business and you do the DJing and all that kind of stuff. But for me, and this whole purpose of this podcast is actually to get to know who you are as a human, right? Because yes, we wear so many different hats, but beneath that, we are just ourselves, right?
Maybe.
Yes, to a degree. Like, especially in society these days, a lot of us do wear masks.
We have
and
to.
we don't show our true selves. But I hope through this conversation, the listener can get a better idea of who you are.
Inshallah.
And for myself and for the listener, what do we need to know about you to better understand the man that sits in front of us today?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know if you need to know anything about me, but what you might find about me is that probably just as regular as the next person. I think a little bit earlier on, I just learned that everybody is just as regular as the next person and everybody is great as the next person. And the only real difference between you and somebody great online doing something that you think I'm doing is consistency and putting in the hard work. In terms of the depths of my character, through this interview, you might understand a few things. But I will add also that, like you said, social media, it's a marketing tool. And that's what it is for me. You know, it's a hard thing to, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be yourself, but it's a hard thing to openly put yourself out there. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I guess we always put our best qualities forward, and the internet is such a vulnerable place to put your realness out there, you know. And like you were talking about those masks, they're just everybody has masks. I think our whole conscious being is a mask, really. Maybe our subconscious is the true us, and our conscious is when we're awake is everything that we've done to survive in this world. Every mask that you have on, if you're weak on the inside, you're like tough, you know. And every mask is almost a direct opposite reflection of what you truly are inside to some extent.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially when you see, unfortunately, when men take their lives, a lot of the time those men are seen as the happy larrikin guys, right? They're always
Sad clown.
Yeah, they're the clown of the party, but they're the ones that take their life.
They call that paradox a sad clown because they're often so hurt or torn up inside that they get small bits of gratification out of making other people happy, as well as masking their own true feelings, because in our culture, it's almost looked down upon to have something wrong with you or whatever. So you just got to be happy, keep everybody laughing. I've had a few of those sad clowns in my life pass away or commit suicide. One was Jake Ryan just recently. And like you kind of get an understanding when it's all done that you could see him at the party, they're the life of the party, and you can just imagine what happens when everybody goes and the room just gets quiet, you know.
How does that impact you, especially losing people close to you from that? Do you feel like you could have done more, or like what's your mindset around that?
Some of them potentially maybe. You know, in the 1 year, my partner overdosed, my best friend died, and we had another string of suicides. Potentially, maybe it's a hard way to live, thinking like that. But I guess we all could do a bit more. But I think the most important thing is to look out for the small signs, because everybody's giving off signs. And whether you saw the sign, or whether you saw the sign, you didn't see the sign, or it was just a bit too much hard work to look into it, and it was easier to just keep laughing. Yeah, but it's a very hard thing to do, to say what more could you have done. Depending on case by case.
Yeah, I think the simple thing is just always checking in, as we just said. Like, you just don't know what someone is going through, and I think the common thing is like you go to your mates, oh, hey, how's it going? And they just go, yeah, it's all good, bro. Yeah. But like it's actually taking the moment to go, bro, like how are you actually going? Yeah. And just going that level deeper and creating that safe space for them to feel like, oh shit, like this guy's actually asking how I'm going. And they may not feel comfortable in that moment, but by you actually doing that, they'll be like, oh, all right, when I am struggling, I know I can possibly go to this guy and open up because he shows that he cares. And I always say, like, vulnerability breeds vulnerability. And this is why I do this podcast through men speaking about our feelings, our journeys, our emotions, right? It's going to allow the listener to be like, well, if these guys can do it and they've gone through that, why can't I?
Yeah, 100%. The other thing is too, in this day, we get vilified for it as men.
Yeah.
You know, there's such an importance on being a certain way. And to an extent, we need to be.
Yeah, I think, there's an element of, it's funny, society's in a funny place right now where I'm going to say a lot of men are weak.
Yeah.
They are. Like, they play victim, they cry wolf, and it's like, that's not what we're going for. Like, men should be able to express their emotions but still be strong.
We've learned to be weak lately through the reward system. It's been better. It's easier for men to not be so alpha, to be out there, rudder. We've been rewarded for certain things, as well as we've given away most of our masculine qualities.
Yeah.
I think that what stems from it all is the ability to fight. I think every young man should learn to fight, not so he can fight, so he can learn not to fight. So whenever you choose not to fight somebody, it is a conscious decision, and you're choosing peace. You're not saying, if you can't fight and you decide not to fight, you're just not fighting. But if you can have the ability to cause violence on somebody and you're choosing not to, then you're a peaceful person. I don't think you can have peace unless you have an element of violence to you.
It's like that saying that you would rather be a soldier in a garden than a gardener in a war. Yeah. We all need to have that inner fight in us that needs to come out when it needs to.
And if you haven't channeled it into the appropriate direction, it's going to manifest in other ways. We see so many men that we'll call them weak or whatever for whatever reason, and they're bashing their missus, they're carrying on at work, they're treating their workers like shit. They're finding all these little places where they can get a little bit of superior dominance to feed their ego because they're lacking it at the most important place.
They're full of insecurities, bro.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, we're saying all this, and we're not to bash on these men, right? I think it's just to bring light to it and to be like, hey, like, fuck, what you're doing is, you shouldn't be acting like that, but you can change.
Yeah.
Just because you are like that now doesn't mean you have to stay like that the rest of your life. You don't have to play victim your whole life.
Yeah.
It's like the whole story of two twins growing up. They have a shit upbringing, right? One goes down one path of crime and jail and everything.
Yeah.
And the other one goes down a path of like business and success and all that kind of stuff, right?
And whatever journey they went through is the same water that softens the potato, hardens the egg.
We all have a choice. What was your upbringing like, bro?
Pretty rough, but really good.
Because you grew up in, was it Riverston?
Yeah, I grew up in River.
Fuck, that's a hood back then, bro.
That was the hood. I grew up around the housing commission. I actually grew up on the other side of the train track. So I don't know, I had this weird idea that I was like not a little bit more well off than them, but really, and look at it all, we're in the same socioeconomics. But we grew up with very little money. It was only my mum raising us. We had very little money, but we had everything we wanted. Like, we never had brands of shoes or fancy food or anything, but whatever you wanted to get into, you wanted to get into a sport, mum would pay for it. You wanted to get into, we went all weird stuff. We did diving for a little bit at the Olympic Park till my sister fell on somebody. We never went back. We did weird stuff, baseball, cricket, whatever it was. I was in a voice choir for a little bit. Just whatever bit of curiosity you had, my mum would pay for it. So we were very poor, but we had anything we needed, you know. Growing up, I didn't have a father around, so I only realised this later on in life. I constantly had a need to please or seeking for, you know, male approval, which got me into a lot of trouble. And just growing up with nothing, you don't have an understanding, with nothing and no guidance, you don't have a lot of understanding of what else you can do, you know. When you're hanging around the houses, I remember I had a neighbour at my dad's place, and that was the first time I'd seen like hood money, you know what I mean? And this guy, he had a VL, dropped rims, gold chain, took me to the fridge, he showed me a keg, he had all the iconic Houso stuff. He had like a dream catcher, and he had that fluffy blanket with the dolphins on it, a couple of samurai swords, and I remember looking around and I'm like, he's made it. Like, what more could you want? He's got the house, it's clean, the car, the gold chain. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's got to be the answer, because there was no other way, or no other, no one else in my community doing anything that I could look up to. Or there probably was, but I didn't see him at the time. So I just assumed that, well, if you want to get out of here, you got to be doing whatever he's doing. You know what I mean? So obviously then I headed into a life of crime at a young age, just doing dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And then to add to that as well, when I sit back and try to look at the psychology of why I was doing what I did, to add to that, there was a subconscious reward that whenever I fucked up, my dad would show up. You know what I mean? And so I probably couldn't understand that or correlate that, but if I got arrested, my dad would rock up.
So he would actually rock
Yeah.
up? Yeah, okay.
He'd come to the police station or whatever. All right, what's going on? Yeah, okay, sweet. So I probably never understood that till later, but that was some level of reward for what I was doing.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you did that shit so you could actually have your father there to connect with him.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't in the right circumstances.
And then ironically, it's weird because once you start doing really well, you lose that attention. Well, I found I did anyway, which was paradoxical.
That actually takes me back to my childhood. Like, my dad's always been around, but I never had a strong connection with my dad.
Yep.
And I remember I would just do stupid shit to grab his attention.
Yeah.
And I look back now, I'm like, it wasn't even me. I was
Yeah.
just like, why the hell was I doing that? And now I see, I'm like,
Yeah.
it's because I wanted his attention. I wanted some sort of love or affection from him. And the only way I could do that or feel comfortable doing that was through those actions.
And extrapolate from that and you end up with crime.
Yeah, fuck. And what was that impact, like not having your dad around? You obviously it went down, the path of
The
crime.
impact from that was that I looked for father figures in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So my first main fight, because I used to fight.
Yeah.
I fought last year actually.
I was gonna say you had a pro fight, didn't
pro
you?
boxing.
How'd you go?
I lost. I went really well.
Yeah.
I lost. He beat me in the third round.
Yeah.
He stopped me. But I dropped him every round before then. I didn't have the fitness.
You gonna do any more fights?
Yeah. I'll do it towards the end of the year. But going back to it, I didn't have a father figure around. So I was looking for it. And one of the first ones I got was my trainer, who was a bikie at the time.
Yep.
Well, he hadn't quite joined, but he became the sergeant of arms. And then my best friend's dad, who passed away now, who was the president of the rival club. So those were my two male role models growing up. So, and they were so patriotic in the club that I just assumed that that's what it was like. You had paraphernalia, stickers up on the wall and stuff like that in the family house. I just assumed that that was part of what being a man was, having a gang. So I guess what that led me to do was to seek male approval in places I probably wouldn't have. I probably shouldn't have, or in hindsight now I wouldn't have. I mean, to go back to what you said when you're talking about your father, of like, you didn't know why you did them. Now, after spending time, what happened in jail, of going over all of my habits and reasonings of why I do what I do, because you do so many things automatically. You don't even know you're doing them. They're programmed. They could be a traumatic trigger response that just happens when somebody says this, you do that. We have so many of them. I used an example before of like when you're driving the car and you forget where you're going, but you still drive there.
You just end up home.
So you know that you have the ability to do automatic responses, or your subconscious takes over. So looking back at, what were all of those triggers and how did they happen? They did a little study on one of these birds, and it only feeds its baby if the baby chirps, and if the baby doesn't chirp, it doesn't feed it. And then the question comes into it: does it love the baby or not? Who knows? But when it chirps, it feeds it, and they call it a tape, like an automatic response. And we have so many of them. For whatever reason, they're all laid in our brain. They could go back to what we're talking about before with the masks that we use to survive. Oh, somebody says this, I do that. So you have all of these triggers that you don't understand why you do it. Oh, he said this, so I've got to fight him. Whatever it is. And then when you start breaking them down, it's really interesting. You really start thinking, why am I doing these things that I'm doing? And you start rewiring it for different actions.
I feel like it all stems back from your childhood. Through shit that you go through, you form these coping mechanisms to kind of fill the void of those insecurities that you're going through at that time. So like that insecurity of and myself not having that connection with our dads,
Yeah.
we would form a coping mechanism of doing shit
Yeah.
to try and get that attention.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how the human mind works.
Well, potentially the human mind as a whole. But what I've learned, or whether it's right or wrong, is that so many behaviors come from your subconscious, which isn't the mind that's active when you're awake. You know what I mean? So probably that's your core personality in your subconscious. Don't forget, your subconscious has a dark element as well. You know,
Yeah.
whenever you have an intrusive thought, that probably comes from your subconscious. Like, hate that guy over the head. So we all have an innate darkness inside of us, and a balance of goodness. But it's understanding that subconscious, and maybe to an extent accepting that is you, and then working on that.
So building a relationship essentially with your subconscious.
100%, yeah.
What's your relationship with it?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
Lately, yeah.
What was it like previously? Like just a lot of intrusive thoughts and
No understanding that it existed.
Yeah,
it
okay.
was I've just got this one mind and this one brain.
yeah.
I think the paradigm that really got me is like, I was reading somewhere, it's like, all right, so the voice in your head is you. Would you agree?
Yeah, most people would say. I would say so, yeah.
So then who's listening?
You.
Then just by that alone, you would have to assume that there's two components. And so then they would say, well, which one is you? And you're like, obviously the one that's talking. Well, is it? The one that's talking always changes. The one that's never changed has been the one that's listening, because it's been receiving information since you were a kid. Oh, should I do this? Oh, yeah, all right. Should we do that? Oh, I don't know. Essentially, the one that's listening is the unchanged one. So maybe that's the one that's you. I don't know. But just off that question, I was like, man, there is multiple, not personalities, but multiple aspects of my brain. If it's male, female, whatever it is, conscious, subconscious. And then just from that, I'm not in any way knowledgeable enough, but just from that, you could extrapolate and think, oh, maybe that's how we got to all of these pronouns, because people don't understand that we all have multiple voices in our head.
Yeah.
But I'll digress from that because I don't know enough about it.
No.
But just that one thing started making me understand. It's like, wow, man, there's a talker and a listener. Which one's in control? Which one's doing it? And every time that I'm doing an action that I fully didn't comprehend, like, who is that and where's that coming from? And so how did I build the relationship? Probably meditation, prayer, being on my own, just being forced into dealing with stuff in my head without any. So for so long, when my best friend, he died from a drug overdose, and then my partner as well. So for so long, I was up in my own head, and I couldn't really understand it. I couldn't make sense of it. And whenever I'd go through something like that or something traumatically, my response was drugs. And so what that would do was that would just push away any feelings that I need to process for however long. So when my best friend died, and my partner helped me through it at the time, and then in that same year, she died. And I just went through all these emotions, but I just took whatever to let it go.
To numb the pain, yeah.
So the first time that I was in jail, just with those sleepless nights, and then a few of them, I remember something happened with this girl that I was seeing, and we're having an argument over the phone. We're pretty much breaking up. She's explaining to me that one of the, actually I'm not going to say any names, but one of these football players was coming over with his friend, and I'm like, what? Are you serious? You can't understand? He's coming over as well. We was having this big fight, and they told me before I got locked in, oh, you got no power in yourself. But I didn't really think about it, because I was arguing on the phone. It was 6:59. They're going, muster. And I'm like, wait. Hang the phone up and go to my cell. As I walked in the cell, I realised I got no power. So I don't even have the distraction of TV, nothing, lights, nothing. The whole night I just sat there in my bed in the darkness staring at it and just processed my own mind. And I think for whatever reason you come to that place, I don't think a lot of people do it. Just sit there and go through whatever you're feeling. Even if it's sadness, like fully appreciate that emotion, like fully go through it, delve into your head, don't escape it. Those little things that keep you up at night, whatever those things are on your brain that you steer away from, at some point in time you need to process them. And if there's an element of guilt related to it, you have to forgive yourself, which is one of the biggest things for me. Or if there's an element of you feel bad or whatever is in there that you're embarrassed or you're hiding from, you have to process it. And most importantly, you've just got to forgive yourself.
Yeah. yeah, we never sit and actually embrace our emotions. You just have to go out into society. Everyone's on their phones or listening to music, or they're always distracting themselves instead of looking themselves in the mirror and having those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
And like you were forced to do that.
Yeah.
What were some of the worst uncomfortable conversations you had with yourself?
Obviously the one with my father, processing that. Moments where I was a coward in times for whatever that was. And you know, reality is subjective. So slowly, whatever happens in an event, you'll start to change it in your own mind to make yourself feel better. But really look back on it and go, no, man, you were weak. You messed up for whatever it is. Process that and then set something in your head to make sure it never happens again. Another one was just in relation to people passing and just going through those emotions. I spent so many years out of jail, evading those emotions that just actual sorrow for losing somebody, and just really going through that. And I guess at the start of all the people that pass, there's an element where you like blame them for so long. I guess it is their fault, but you're upset with them of why, and then I guess at some point in time, you release that and you understand that, you know, everybody's going through what they're going through.
Yeah, it's letting go of all that pent up resent and anger, and then having empathy for not only yourself but for the other person as well. And that's something that I've gone through with my dad.
Yeah.
Because there was a big chunk of my life, it wasn't until a couple of years ago actually, that I always loved him.
Yeah.
But I had this built up resent and anger because I never had that connection.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I did this deep freaking meditation breath work one time.
Yeah.
And I was in a different world, bro.
Hey.
But the vision, I had this vision of I was a little boy, right? And I went up and grabbed someone's hand. And as soon as I grabbed this person's hand, I shifted into the adult version of myself.
Wow.
And I'm looking into my dad's eyes.
Wow.
And like, I'm saying, I love you, Dad. Like, like I understand, I have so much empathy for you. And having that whole like conversation there, and afterwards, like I just let go of all that resentment and anger and all this. I was just filled with love and gratitude and empathy, and my whole body's like shaking, like getting rid of it all. And I'm very curious for you. You mentioned like those uncomfortable conversations in that cell. Your dad came up, right? And that would have been a deep one because, as I know, that stems back from childhood. What was that like for you? What came up?
I think like you said, when you grow up and you become a man, like you realize what we're all going through, and that everybody is just trying to hold this thing together. You know, everybody is as fake as the next person. Everybody's faking it till they make it. Everybody's struggling to some extent, and it's hard. And I realized that we're all human, you know. And then I look at my parents and my dad, where he come from. He come from Africa, and what it was like, and big achievement just to get here, and everything that he's done. So I think just accepting them as a human being, because for so long when you grow up, you just think your parents are just these superheroes, like they do everything. They just sort it all out. And then when you get older, you're like, man, like they were struggling. They were barely keeping the wheels on. And they were just normal people, you know, with problems, with insecurities, with doubts, with depression, with anxiety, with all the other things that we're riddled with, you know.
I think the biggest changing moment was, yes, going through that visualization that I went through, but it's becoming a dad, because then you truly understand what they had to go through, right? Because they're just doing the best with the tools that they have.
Yeah.
My dad didn't have the best tools. I'm assuming your dad didn't have the best tools.
Yeah.
So for them to actually turn up and be better than what they had is such a big thing for them.
Yeah.
But then we don't see that as kids, right?
No.
But now becoming a dad myself, I'm like, fuck. Like from where you came from, you actually did such a great job. And I have even more love and gratitude towards you. But it's also understanding that, hey, I want to be better than that as well. I want to learn from what you didn't do and then implement that into me being a father myself. So like for me, my biggest value is connection.
Yeah.
So I will spend as much valuable time with my daughter as possible.
Yeah.
We'll go out and play. We'll do so much things together, play with dolls, everything, right? Because that is what I didn't get as a child. So now I want to give that to my daughter. And that's, I think, so important to learn from what your parents didn't do, so then you can be better for that.
And I think we're living in a different world too. We have so many more tools. Like you could jump on and learn about so much more things about the human brain that our parents didn't have the luxury for. The internet wasn't big at the time, and they just knew they needed to work, put bills on the table, and that was it. You know, so I think now we're looking into stuff, and where you can jump on YouTube and watch, you know, a behavioral specialist or whatever it is. And I think we're the first generation that are actually, or probably not the first, but in recent times that are actually looking internally into ourselves and the reason of why we do what we do. To an extent, not everybody is.
Not everyone, but I think it's so beautiful that we now have access to all that, because it's where we can draw the line in the sand and we can actually make a change so the cycle doesn't continue. And unfortunately, in a lot of families, you see, especially coming from Western Sydney, the cycle just continues and continues and continues and no one breaks it. For someone listening right now and they're in that cycle, right? They're listening to this conversation. What would you say to them to think differently about how they're living? Yeah.
Swim upstream.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to become part of what everybody else is doing on a short-term level. You'll be rewarded for it. The nail that sticks out doesn't get hammered. There is no difference between you and anybody that's doing somebody great. Just nothing good comes out of doing what everybody does. If they go left, you go right. Just have to do something different. And everybody will, I think I saw something the other day, everybody will think it's delusion until you've done it. You know, even yourself getting into this podcast, you probably had so many naysayers. People like, oh, are you sure that's what you can do? You want to do this? Maybe in some level they like genuinely care about you, but on another level, they're the prison guards to this jail that we're in.
No one believed me, bro, because to give a bit of context, right, I was that shy, quiet, introverted kid who couldn't even fucking speak to anyone. And now I'm about to hit 300 episodes. I'm like, no one believed I could get this far, but you got to believe in yourself.
100%. And it's, but there's just, it's just so easy to fit in and follow the crowd, you know, but it's so rewarding to not do it.
100%.
And not only that, everything that we're doing is heading down towards a dangerous path, you know, or a dangerous mindset if you haven't built the foundations in your own mind. So my opinion would be go upstream and find some faith.
Talk to me about faith. Have you always been strong in your faith? I would say obviously not if you went down that path.
Yeah. No, I haven't always been. No. But then like just now looking at all the fundamentals, I'm just such a better person when I'm in my faith, you know. But definitely I wasn't. I grew up Catholic. I reverted to Islam later.
Really?
I grew up Catholic and probably delved a fair bit into that religion at a time, looked into everything. And just me personally, I found some places that weren't for me. And I think Islam was a more designed message for me to receive.
When did that happen? Was that through like before jail? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I reverted to Islam in my worst state. I was heavily involved in crime. I was a gang member. I had not even gone to the worst levels yet because I still had my security license. I hadn't even fully got in trouble and had that taken off me. And I just used to sit in a booth with this old guy. And I always had like different beliefs about aliens and weird stuff like that, you know. And I never had a religion that holistically looked at everything, you know. And obviously, we've got a creator God. Yeah. Why would he stop with one creation? We know he created jinn. We know he created angels out of light. So we know there are different. And if you're from the Old Testament, we know that there were weird creations before with the Nephilim breeding with the sons of God, bred with the daughters of man. We know there were giants and all sorts of different creations. So why do we believe that didn't create any more? But that's just a small little topic. I think the message came to me at the time. It was just more direct and more suitable for a young man. And it didn't stick with me. Like I became a Muslim, I did my Shahada early on and I was still partying, rada. And I just used to try do little things like when Ramadan, like I just finished Ramadan now, alhamdulillah, probably one of the best Ramadans I've ever done. But back then it was so hard. I was like, man, I just want to do this month without taking drugs or something like that. And even then I'd fail that a couple of times and just slowly build the foundations until I'm getting to a place where I'm much happier with.
I've been having this conversation lately around faith, around religion, and especially in the society that we live in now, I feel like we're lacking that faith and religion. It's in a way disappearing from society. And I feel like that's why mental health is on the rise, right? Because if we don't have, especially as men, we're so ego-driven, we feel like we have to do everything ourselves. And if we don't have that faith, that religion there, when shit hits the fan, like God's not in your corner. You don't have that faith that someone's going to guide you through it because you feel like it's just you. And that's why so many men go down those dark paths because they feel like they're alone. What role does religion play in helping men to become better men, essentially?
Well, I mean, if you were to follow the religion correctly, follow the Sahaba and the Prophet, peace be upon him, one of the most beautiful ways to live. But I think the way it affected me personally was that I found God in the worst times. You know, in my struggle, in my pain, I found something, and it was something to come back, something to bring me back. You know, which I would be scared if I didn't have that. It's very hard to take a role these days because, in my opinion, only that they've watered down faith and turned it into like this. I want to be very careful what I say. This very soft, turn the other cheek type of approach. Whereas in some aspects, we can't run and hide from the fact that we're men and we're dangerous, violent creatures. We need to embrace that and understand that is that and learn the ability to be soft and hard at the same time. It's one of the hardest qualities. Like just being completely soft, in my opinion, only will not help you, and being completely hard, you have to find some balance.
Yin yang, you know?
And in my opinion, some religions have watered that down and tried to create us to being this soft, passive person when from the religious documents that I've read, all of the prophets that have come have been hard, strong men, ready to leave to sacrifice their life for the good of people and for God. So I think we should still be those strong men.
Stand for something.
Yeah.
So many men don't stand for something, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
A lot of men have, in a way, been cowards.
Yeah.
At the beginning of, if you get what I'm going about, they stood for something and then the higher powers said something else and then they just all cowered away.
Explain that.
Around the COVID stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those higher powers.
Yeah, around the governments.
Yeah.
So a lot of men lost their way.
Yeah.
They didn't stand strong. And I feel like as a society, we are weakened.
Yeah. And look, I think we've just got too much faith in the government, and it's now all of this stuff's coming out without being a conspiracy theorist. If you don't believe that there are conspiracies at all, that has to be the biggest conspiracy. Like the fact that the government has been completely transparent with us, we know it's not true. So I think we have too much faith in this government, and we were vilified so much for speaking out. You know, just for questioning rationality and logic or asking about this vaccine, like, what's in this? Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, put your tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
And they use that tactic, and they use whatever tactic they need. They'll label you conspiracy theorist or an anti-Semitic or whatever it is, and we've got these little ways of just shutting us up, you know.
Yeah.
And
that in itself, like, if you can't even ask questions, like, surely something's up, right?
And that was the scary part. It was actually scary to see, like, how our government could completely abandon us in a time, force us to take this jab, like, you're going to lose your livelihood, you're not going to have money, you're not going to be able to work, rada. And now when it's all after, or they're finding cases of autism, or they're finding all these fit people with heart problems or whatever, they're saying, we didn't force you to take it. You know what I mean? Such a crazy paradigm that we're in.
Do you feel like faith got you through? Like, obviously, you went through jail and then kind of straight into a pandemic, or
I was out for a little bit.
out for a little bit? So, but kind of back to back.
Yeah.
Do you feel like faith got you through that period?
In my experience, my faith gets me through everything, of course, but COVID was still for the lives in. Other than the people that lost their lives and people that lost their livelihood, for me, COVID was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why so?
I was just in a good time. I don't want to say too much. I continued to work. I saved money. It was I coming out of jail and then coming into the world with, not that I did a long time, but coming to the world with so many people and rada. I enjoyed the quietness of nobody was on the road. I still could go to work. I saved money. Nobody was around. You'd only spend time with your family.
It was a nice transition back into life.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. So I didn't think I needed to get through that. I was actually quite comfortable.
Coming back to faith, like we were speaking about before, around in Australia, right? There's not much. There's not much faith, and there's so many different cultures. And as a Australian, I wasn't really brought up in faith, and it's all about going out and partying and all that kind of stuff. And if you're seen as someone that is a believer and it's faith and is strong in that, you're seen as like, fuck, who are you? Like, here we go.
Yeah. We touched on that before. Like, it's such a crazy. Maybe there's a few other countries that are like this, but it's such a crazy paradigm for like to be socially acceptable to be an alcoholic from such a young age, from 15 years old, drinking, your mates coming over, stealing UDL cans from the parents, and they would look at, yeah, right, couple of drinks. Till you get to 18, you go to the pub, you go to the Fiddler every day, you're drinking, you're getting absolutely wasted, shit-faced every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You rock up one day and you say, I'm not going to drink. They go, mate, what's wrong with you? Are you sick? What's wrong with you, bloody pussy? So just a crazy concept is that we have socially accepted being an alcoholic at such a young age. In my opinion, probably the worst and most dangerous drug leads to the leading cause of death, the leading cause of violence. I think 80% of sexual assaults are related to alcohol, 80% or something, I'm making numbers up. Violent assaults are related to alcohol. All of these things and problems that come from alcohol, and it's not to mention they've always said pot was a gateway drug, and I'm not condoning it, but realistically, alcohol is the gateway drug. You smoke pot, I'm not saying it's good, you normally go kick back. You drink alcohol, you're like, let's get it back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for that to be so socially acceptable to the point where you've left school, you're working, you're a tradie, you're getting wasted every weekend, everybody around you thinks you're doing well. Oh, no, he's all right. Just has a couple of tinnies on the weekend. There's nothing wrong with him. And then what does that lead to? You're beating your wife, you're arguing at work, you're having all these issues. So before you get to that point where you're really understanding yourself, you spend the last 10 years a full functioning alcoholic and you've damaged your brain. And all the things that have happened from that, the fights and the late nights and the arguments, the family, the work, everything you miss, the training you miss, you let your dreams go. It's so crazy that we could be so misguided to believe we're doing the right thing, and you could be a fully functioning alcohol or drug addict before you're 25 years old.
Yeah.
And in to some extent, everyone will think you're doing fine.
Yeah, because it is so socially accepted. It's so easy to get caught up in it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I never went down that path, right? When I was like 16, I went to parties and stuff, but what I realized is like the next day when I'd be like sick and vomit and shit, I was like, I don't want to do this, man. And then I was always seen as the weird guy because I'd never go out and party anymore.
Yeah.
And I felt in a way alone, but now I'm actually like so grateful that I didn't go down that path because I know so many people that are still in this. And I'm like, we're 27, bro. Like, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
How long are you going to continue that for? And especially when they have families, it's like, what example are you setting to your kids?
Yeah.
And what kind of man are you being for the household?
And whatever you don't deal with, you're passing on to your children. It is, but man, we're living in a weird time. It probably all comes back for me for guidance and religion. Everything can be solved with following religion.
Yeah.
It's just it's a crazy concept how we could just slip away from reality and just assume we're doing so well. Or going back to the reasons of why we do what we do. I remember even if like, I think we just never had enough guidance. Even if I could go back and see myself as a young kid, going back to that story of that guy with the VL and rada, of looking at what he's doing, I obviously assumed at that time that selling drugs is the only way to make money. You know what I mean? Let's forget the concept that it's haram and all the bad stuff that you do and taking drugs and scientifically, whatever that does, you taking that drug, does that pass on through your DNA or whatever to your kids? Remove yourself completely from that. This is what my message I'd like to tell the young kids. Now that I'm a businessman, logistically, it doesn't make sense. It's nonsensical. You want to sell a product. I would almost like look for the day that my son says to me, hey, Dad, I want to sell drugs. Beautiful, son. Sit down. Let's talk about it. All right, I sell a lot of stuff now. You want to sell a commodity that unless you know Pablo Escobar, you're only going to make 10 to 30% ROI on it, maximum. Unless you're getting the bricks, you're making 10 to 30% on a commodity that's going to put you in jail. It is not financially feasible. Economically, it just doesn't make sense. Like right now, I'll find you a product on Alibaba, you double your money on. It's a no-brainer, but we've been coerced into a lifestyle of believing certain things are right or wrong, whether we had the guidance or for whatever reasons that we're in this lifestyle of drinking all the time, partying, and that being acceptable. In my opinion, the only answer is religion.
Yeah.
The only thing to pull you out of that, because all of your friends, all the people around you are going to tell you you're doing fine, you're doing good, yeah, there's no problems.
Let me ask you this: for someone who does feel lost, right?
Yeah.
They're not a man of faith, and I'm not saying to pigeonhole them into any
Yeah.
religion, but they're wanting answers. They're wanting to seek what is faith, what is God, why am I here? What would you say to them?
Go and follow the prophets. Whatever your prophet is, if your prophet is Isa, Jesus, if all of our prophets from the Abrahamic religion, Abraham, Moses, Yusuf, Joseph, the most beautiful men in the world, all of these prophets we can all follow. So go look at their lifestyles, the journeys they went through, the things that they did. And that's my only, without me saying go find Islam, that is my best way to say that there is something that we can all collectively agree on and listen to their stories and learn about them. Because in today's age, we know more about Kim Kardashian than we know about Christ. We know more about, and I shouldn't even say Christ because that was his name. His name was Yeshua. We know more about your sports players. I know some people could probably tell me more stats on LeBron than they know about the Prophet Joseph or Moses or stuff like that. So I think just find that knowledge. Find that knowledge and go down that rabbit hole. We've gone down how many rabbit holes of conspiracy theories or this, that. Go down the rabbit hole of religion and find the best, most credible source. And then research more. Understand what the Nicaea Accords were. Understand if you are to follow a certain document or doctrine, follow it back as far as you can, just for your knowledge. I don't want to say too much. Follow your doctrine back to when it was reported to be edited by Emperor Constantine in the Nicaea Accords way back. At some point in time, decided which Bibles we're going to listen to. So we cut out the Bible of Thomas, the Bible of Barnabas, the Book of Judas. There's probably some stuff in the Dead Sea Scroll. We cut out a lot of Bibles from our new Bible.
Yeah, I heard there's a fair few missing, and some of them have some really interesting context to it.
I want to read them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my opinion would be follow the doctrine of your religion. If you're following a certain book, follow it back to that book. Where if it was a certain king that changed or edited that book, follow it back as far as you can and look at where it all comes from.
I want to ask, though, like, you're strong in Islam, right? But you come from a Catholic upbringing. Are you now learning about both? Are you now more open-minded to other religions and wanting to learn about them? Or now
always interested. If there's always any new information, I'll always like to look into it. Yeah. And I've got a strong understanding or bond of, us in Islam, we're very similar to Orthodox Catholics. I think they read the Old Testament. And any Jew that sticks to the Torah, any person of the Jewish faith that sticks to the original Torah, we have essentially the same faith. We got the 10 Commandments from the Torah. we've also strongly believe in the Prophet Isa, in Jesus. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what is fascinating to me, is like how connected all these religions are.
The trick is that they're trying to convince you that they're not. They're always trying to divide us one way or another. Whatever it has been through history, when it's been through race or religion, they're always trying to divide us. And the thing is that most of us people, what I've learned, especially people of faith, we have all the same traditional values to an extent.
And that's what I respect about you right now, is that you are open-minded to all the religions and understanding them, because there is so many people out there that just push their religion and their one's right and all the others are wrong. And it's like, what the fuck are you on about, man?
Yeah.
It's a crazy world that we live in when people are like that.
It is. Look, I guess going back to like understanding your own brain, it's easier to be like that. It's easier to see things in black and white. When you start, like we briefly touched on the psychology of your father. So when you start doing that and understanding people, you can get crippled in decision making, because when do you accept reality? Like, oh, that happened, you did this to me, or oh, you did this to me, but because of this, and I can understand where you come from, right? And become so nuanced, that it's if ignorance is bliss, then knowledge is a burden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's like you overthinking or overanalyzing everything and not accepting things on face value.
From your time being locked up and essentially having nothing, right? No material things and just time to think for yourself. How did you find that happiness with having nothing?
That was probably the best experience that happened to me. One of the levels of jail is, other than what we're talking about before, is having time to think, which is the best thing. You remove everything that you thought was important on the outside: cars, money, watches. I used to wear a lot of jewelry. I don't wear any. I wear my Apple Watch now. Going out, parties, this, that, rudder. I've got this, I've got that car, I've got that clothes. Once you remove all of that and you wake up in a pod, you got your green boob shoes on, you got a red cup and a red bowl, and everybody's got the same thing. And you start to understand and learn and talk to people and appreciate them, or be appreciated for internally what you have, or, what you can do. Then you start really understanding that none of it meant anything, And now, like, I'm stuck in this weird feeling of like constantly appreciating things, but then constantly wanting more. It's like a constant cycle. But just that process of being stripped down to nothing, and everyone around you is stripped down for nothing, and everyone needs to be appreciated, respected, disliked, loved, hated, based on what you are, not what you have, was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. I've always said every young man should do about a year's jail, Have that, whether the year's enough or too much for each person, but have that time to sit and think and understand yourself, and just remove everything that you think's important. And then you'll really realize that, man, I had moments in jail, like I did a lot of jail with Benny as well, he's been on, where like, man, you have a beautiful day. You're waking up early, you're doing your prayers, you're having breakfast with your cellie, you're having a coffee, you're out on the yard training, you're doing a workout, you come back in, you eat, you play a game of cards, you have a little afternoon nap, you go do another session in the afternoon, you go back in your cell, you call your missus, you have a chat, you speak to your mum, you do your buy-up form, rada. Aside from all the other stuff, you're like, that was a pretty good day. You know what I mean? Alhamdulillah for that day. So I think you really learn to be happy without all these materialistic things.
Yeah, it's being grateful for the small things in life, right?
Yeah.
That we do take for granted, because life is so busy.
Yeah.
It's always going 100 miles an hour, that we actually don't take a moment to realize, hey, like having this breakfast this morning, or the sun's out, or my family's healthy and happy, I've got a roof over their head. Like, these small things in life is what makes life beautiful. So many of us take it for granted until, unfortunately for some people, it's taken away from them.
And whatever element it gets removed, so we need that. A life-threatening illness, or you get locked up, or something happens to you, whatever, something, just shake your life up and give you a new paradigm on things.
Yeah, they say that's what it takes for a lot of people to actually make a change.
Yeah.
And it's sad that we have to get to that point.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't we just have the awareness to pick up on where we're going wrong?
I don't know if I would have changed.
Yeah.
I was, heading down such a direction that I needed to shake up. So for me, other than the bad stuff, and jail doesn't really doesn't affect you as much as it affects the people around you. Other than going through that, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I would advise everybody to avoid jail as much as possible, but having that time to think was one of the best things that happened to me. Like I replanned my life. And not only that, is that I'd gone through so many years accumulating friends. Oh, here's my mate. Yeah, this guy's my mate. Rada. Hundreds, thousands on Facebook, whatever. Rada. I went to jail, and who come to see me? Like maybe 5 good boys.
Yeah.
So it was so easy when I got out. It's like, well, I'm just cutting everybody off except for these 5 people.
It's just like when you finish school, right? You think you have so many friends, and then everyone goes on their different...
They're all situational friends.
That's it. It's because you got to be with them every day.
Yeah. Would you have been friends in other circumstance? Who knows? You just affiliated yourself with someone with the closest personality to you.
Yeah, it's interesting the journey of life and the paths that it takes us down, and how everything does happen for a reason, I believe. As you said, you went to jail for that reason, to have that shake up.
Yeah.
And without that, you wouldn't be sitting in front of us today.
Well, I might still be partying, bendering, non-stop.
Could be dead, bro. Who knows? Fuck. I was having this... Coming back, I want to talk about business a bit. And when I was sitting with Benny Salgado, he goes, if you can run a gang, you can run a business, right? And it's so true. Every con or criminal that I've spoken to, right? They've all have successful businesses now. And I'm like, imagine if we just had the education, the knowledge, the proper role models back when we were younger.
We don't get taught it.
We would have been we wouldn't have gone through all that. And I think that's why we are in such a beautiful space now with people like yourself who have gone through that to now building these businesses and showing a different lifestyle, a different way of life, that our youth can see this and be like, hey, I don't have to go down that path of crime. I can do this.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Man, everything that I learned before, I'm using in this. It's the same thing. I've got a WhatsApp group. I've got vending machines. And the same thing. It's like a run. Like, make sure you got this. Yeah, pick it up. Go to the warehouse. Grab these. I'm still a drug dealer. I just sell sugar. You know what I mean?
I don't know what's worse, bro.
Probably the worst drug. And then like without getting too deep into it, maybe not our schooling system, but the American schooling system was designed by people like, I think it was Henry Ford or JP Morgan or some of these ultra rich people with big companies. And I think it was Henry Ford said in his memoirs, like, I don't want a nation of thinkers and leaders. I want a nation of workers. Yeah. So at some point in time, our system, or the American system, was designed to keep you where you are in a certain type of mind state. That's
a rabbit hole, that's for sure. Because I'm on the same wavelength as you. I feel like the schooling system is designed to just make us workers.
We shouldn't be sitting inside a classroom for that long.
Especially as men, our boys.
We should be out by the water. We should be doing something. We should be learning skills at the very minimum, learning finances, learning how to trade, learning skills, learning how to be active, learning how to fight, things like that, stuff that men should be doing.
Yeah, because now... And it's sad because I do a lot of work in schools so I do air conditioning. We have the contract for the school. So I do a lot of work in schools. And unfortunately, a lot of these boys, they all have labels, bro. ADHD, can't sit still in class. I'm like, because that's how boys don't learn.
Yeah.
We're not designed to sit in a classroom, especially if it's on a subject that we're not interested in.
Under those lights, in that things. And then go look at our schools. They look like prisons. When I got to prison, the first thing I thought, man, this is like high school. Islanders over there, Asians over there, lunchroom, don't walk over that thing, you know what I mean? And we've been institutionalized into thinking this is normal.
Yeah. Are you going to send your kids to school? Is that a
Islamic school?
Yeah?
Yeah.
There's one at around Plumpton area, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about.
Man, it's moving forward.
Yeah.
The rhetoric that they're learning in school, I don't want my child learning that stuff, And then too, everyone's got this victim mindset.
Yeah.
And they're getting that, oh, you can't sit still, you got ADD, or you got autism, or you got this, or I don't know anything about them. I'm not knowledgeable enough in that, but I mean, it's so easy for a kid to be like, oh, no, I'm like this because of that. No, I don't do this because of that. Mm-hmm. When, you could literally create anything you want. You could manifest anything you want. But going back to what we were saying before about the distraction, my opinion is part of this world distraction everything that's been happening slowly has been reducing our concentration span down to what, like we're at 7 seconds now.
Yeah.
We can watch a reel for 7 seconds.
For sure, it's 3 seconds to hook someone's attention on TikTok and shit.
And then after that 3, you've lost them.
Yeah.
And it's like everything we're doing is you stay busy, you go to work, you come home. If you're a kid, you jump on the PlayStation. You're an adult, you go to the pub, you get drunk, everything they're doing is to stop you being from the divine being that you are. It's just the ability to manifest anything in this world that you want. If you could sit there at night, put it into your head, wake up in the morning, meditate it, you could literally achieve anything. But everything in this world is a distraction to take your mind off internally being the best version of yourself.
You mentioned you do meditation. Is that your time, your tool to be able to kind of take you back to the cell where you had all that time of yourself to think and to manifest?
One of.
Yeah. What else do you do?
I do a lot of praying.
Yeah.
A lot of meditation. You can find it through sport as well. You get that feeling. You can also find it with connecting with people.
Yep.
You can find it with connecting with nature. It's just a feeling and you get it. You know when you got it. You know that feeling that you were describing before you had like a braingasm.
Yeah.
I've had some of them meditating that were like on another level.
It's crazy how you can get a deeper high doing meditation and breath than drugs.
To an extent, like I've only explained it to one friend before, because I don't explain it to many people because I sound crazy, but I've had a proper out of body experience and a braingasm by just sitting there focusing, meditating. And I just from that one particular time had a fully in-depth understanding of my brain and how it works. You know,
it's powerful, bro. The power of the breath.
Yeah,
we don't know how to breathe. A lot of us too.
Yeah, and we don't know how to disattach from our conscious brain from all the little things, you know, in this world and just release it all. It's not easy.
No, it's not. And I want to ask, like, with everything you're doing, you know, running the business, DJing, being a crane operator, as well as being a father, how do you balance all that and still turn up as the best version of yourself, especially for your wife and your kids? Because that would have been a struggle, man, because a lot of business owners go through that. Like, we're in the trenches of building something.
How do I do it? I don't think there's any process of... The only reason I do it is by being consistent.
Yep.
You know, compounding interest works in all aspects of life, in training, in working, in saving money. But I think it's more linked to a motivation. And then on top of that, I don't even want to say too much because I don't know if it's right, but my motivation is based off like this weird element of appreciation, thankfulness, and then guilt. It's like, it first started from, I missed so much time in jail. Like, everybody else was succeeding while I was staying. So I've got to keep doing more,
You got to make up for time, lost time. Yeah.
And so now it's like, every moment that I'm like, fuck, look at that, man, you did so well. Good on you. It's like, but it's not enough. You got to do more. You constantly got to do more. So I've got a constant need to do more, whether it's healthy or not, and a fear of the mundane, a fear of being normal. Not normal in any sense of way, but normal is in not being successful. And my metric of success isn't money. Like, my metric of success would be the lifestyle that I want. Being able to do what I want, travel where I want to go, having money, being able to pay the bills, having time to spend with my family, constantly doing something that develops me. It's just, I think it's a constant battle in my head of, well, you're doing well, but you're not doing enough. Yeah. And that motivates me to constantly keep doing more. And then the moment, I've always done it my whole life, the moment if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So the moment I've ever been good at something, I do something else. Not that I stopped doing that, but whatever it was, when I got really good at boxing and kickboxing, like, all right, let's learn jiu-jitsu. So you can be a really good fighter, and I know I could like bash your head in, but now I've got to come into your sport and have some 40-year-old man wrestle me with his balls on my face, and you can't get up and punch him. You're like, yeah, you got me. So, and then just doing that all the time, putting myself in places where I wasn't the best, and I learned. I just constantly developed my skill set.
Yeah, some people say it's a dark trap to be in that mindset, but it allows you to get to a whole new level. And
the scary thing is, it's like, where do you get off the ride? You know, and that in itself, because anything in excess could be bad. That could lead you to a place where you're never content. I'm never happy. I'm always chasing things. So I don't know. It's a constant battle. Sometimes I got to convince myself not to do things like, bro, relax. You're like coming here today. I'm flying to Adelaide in a couple hours, and then I come back from that. Then one more the next week, and then straight to China.
Yeah.
This is the first day, and I'd only just come back from Brisbane, worked a couple days, and then it was like, spoke to you. It was like, man, you could probably do that another day, but it's like, bro, just do it. Just do it now. Just do everything now. I even got it tattooed on my finger to do it now, to remind me, whatever it is, like, do it right now. So,
do you feel like with your mind always ticking over that you can be present with your kids and your family?
Being present is probably the last deal that I'm battling.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest one. And I think always constantly got it. But I think having children helped me become more present.
Yeah.
Appreciate the small moments. But being present is very hard.
It is.
It's like, it's even a hard concept to understand because you're like, I am here. But it's like really appreciate the moment. It's one of the hardest things that I learned, especially coming out of jail and wanting so many things. It was so hard to be present. But that's one of the biggest things that I'm working on, even now, constantly.
Yeah, I think a lot of business owners go through that struggle. I'll go through that struggle. It's like you're playing with your kids, but sometimes your head's elsewhere because...
I'm playing with my child like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I was to film that and you look back at it, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Like,
imagine showing your kids that in 10 years, you were at the park. What were you doing, Dad? Who were you messaging? I don't even know. It's not important anymore.
Yeah. So like for me, it's like when I'm playing my daughter, I try my best just to put my phone down and just to be present.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, they see that.
Yeah.
Even they're two, right?
Yeah.
They will pick up on that and like, oh, okay, Dad's not really showing me attention. And
we don't know
what continues that cycle, right? The one that you went down of doing shit and what I did to get attention.
Yeah.
So it's something that we have to be aware of because they see that and we will pass down that.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. And they're sponges.
Definitely. Sponges. Especially when they're two, man.
Man.
People say it's terrible twos. What I'm starting to think is like, this is the age where they actually start to really express who they are and start to find who they are. And it's such a beautiful age.
Yeah. I'm looking for that moment when consciousness hits.
Yeah.
You know, in your child. And I'm so interested in that of exactly when that is. When the child becomes self-aware, they're like, wow, I'm here, you're my dad, what's going on? My son's not quite at that place yet.
Yeah. What's it like being a dad?
It's very rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's one of the biggest achievements in my life. Like I could have the biggest podcast, business, everything like that. But being a dad, for me, it's just been fucking amazing, bro.
Yeah, it changes everything.
It's funny because like before you have kids and say like you're expecting your first, everyone's like, oh, they're going to change your life. And, you know, you don't know what you're in for. And you're like, oh, how can a little child change your life so much? But like when you hold your own flesh and blood for like the first...
Straight away?
Yeah, straight away.
You felt it straight away?
Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as she came out, bro, I'm like, oh, bro. It was like such a deep feeling of love, like a whole new level of love. Like, yeah, you love your partner, you love your parents, you love your friends and family, but like your own child that you've helped create, it's a whole new level of unconditional love.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
I didn't get it straight away.
Yeah, okay.
Don't get me wrong. Like, it was like, wow, we just did this.
Yeah.
And like the love was for my wife was stronger. It was like
processing.
Yeah, it's like you're a blob.
Yeah, they are.
What do you do? Like, do something. Nah, it just grew.
Yeah.
At the start, it was still like a bit of shock. Like, wow, this is happening. And then slowly when he started getting attributes and little things and smiling, and then
they can start doing things. Because when they're first born, obviously it's they're just attached to the mum.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't really interact too much. But then once they start developing, and then when they start walking, oh my God.
The game changes. Then when the second one comes, wow.
Yeah, balancing that, bro, as we were speaking about before, that's going to be something that is going to be a journey for me when me and my partner have our second. And you going for more?
Oh, I always said I wanted more now, but now after having the second one, I don't know. Look, even speaking, my wife is amazing. She does so much more than me. You know, I don't know how we would function with another one.
The way I see it is like you're experimenting on the first two, and by the third and fourth one, you should have it down pat. And then the first two can look after the next ones. That
would be the plan.
Fucking hell, bro. Man, what's the end goal for you? I'm very curious, like with everything that you're doing, what is the end goal?
It's a great question. First of all, to be happy, to be content. My overall goal is generational wealth. Not to be ridiculously rich, but to have enough wealth to set myself up, my son's up. Not to set him up, but to create a stable home. I want to make crude AF the biggest brand in Australia, and then I want to go overseas. I don't know. I just want to be happy, and I figured that if I fight once or twice a year, I'm happy. It's so hard to say what my end goal is because all the things I'm doing now weren't part of the plan.
Yeah.
Like I planned so much, and you got to plan everything, and have a clear path. But at the same time, like I've just given a certain element up to God. Like I won't over fuss about a decision. I'll pray and I'll say, God, if it's for me, bring it close. If it's not, bring it away. And a couple of days, whatever the right decision manifests. Instead of hyper fixating on, I've got to do this right, and trying to keep it all together. I just know I've got faith in the path will come. I'm still into some element, like open to whatever opportunities. Like on this tour, we're doing artist management and stuff like that. So I don't know, because you don't know what you want. I like doing clothing, and I like what we're doing because we're doing stuff with the youth and we're in the music industry and it's rewarding. I like doing it, but you just don't know what your plan is. Like right now, I'm traveling Australia, DJing for the boys, for Forte and Curvy. Not that I don't want to do that, because that's mad, but that is a manifestation of where I was 10 years ago.
It's like, be careful for what you wish for.
Yeah, be careful what you wish, because you might get it. I remember I used to, like, back in the day that the artists weren't big, and I got to thank 1-4 for it. Like, Forte and all that were pioneers. The only people around were, like, Hilltop Hoods and stuff, and there was, I think it was Skepta or some band before. So there weren't many people making it in Australian hip-hop, and all my mates used to laugh at me. Listen to your mates with their dumb accents and that. All my African cousins used to laugh. And it didn't get big. When we were with Cursor really blew up, and that changed the game. But then 1-4 picked everything up, you know, by doing what they did, and they made so many more fans. So now I'm traveling around with Forte and that, and he's always been big in the scene, but there wasn't a big scene. So we'd be doing shows with 15 people in the crowd or whatever. And I was like, man, I just wish one day this is on a big scale. And now here we are, we're traveling Australia, sold out shows. It's pumping. The boys are a bit bigger than they've ever been. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm loving every bit of it, but it's not where my journey is now. I've got all these other things that I'm doing, and this that I'm living through is a manifestation of where I was, where my mum was at before. So where I'm at now and the stuff that I'm doing now wasn't part of the plan, but it is. You know, I'm going to China in 2 weeks to import some materials. I haven't fully picked what materials I'm going. I'm going to the Canton Fair with a bit of money to just pick out and try some new stuff. So I don't know, but Crude has been such a beautiful thing to do because it's given me the ability to travel, to deal with artists, to help people, and do something I enjoy doing. As in terms of the final metric, I don't know, man.
You're just enjoying the journey, eh?
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing, especially like for your kids to see that you are going out there and you are chasing your goals. And I was curious, like, what are some of the values or the lessons that you want to instill into your boys?
Pretty much that anything's achievable.
Yeah.
You know, anything you want, sit down, think about it, and you create it. Never be whatever anybody expects you to do, and swim upstream and go against it, because people are always going to doubt you. People are going to advise you. I see it as like, when I got out of jail, I quickly identified that I was in another jail. You know, whatever the walls are different, they might be financial walls or whatever, but I can't do whatever I want. I've got to do this, this, and this. I've got to have this amount of money, got to pay the bills, whatever it is, financially, economically, socially, we're in a jail. You know, extrapolate from that, they're making these 15-minute cities, so they're actually physically trying to make them a jail. And the jailers are, in some aspects, to an extent, your friends and family. You know, they're the Agent Smiths. They don't know what they're doing. They don't mean any harm. They probably haven't developed enough. They're like, oh, you sure you want to do that? You know, oh, maybe that's not a good idea. In some way, they've got the best intention for you, but on another way, what you have to do is, which I've done a couple of times, is you have to shatter their paradigm of you, because generally that makes people comfortable. But, you're being that version of you that I know. That's the version that I know and I love. whenever you're like, hey, no, I'm this, they have to understand, accept, and love a different version of you, and that could shatter their concept, you know. So it's about giving my kids the ability to break out of the mold and do whatever they want to do, and show them and give them the tools to be successful. Like, if you want to do this, let's try it. You know, and it all comes back to being there, having money, and being a present father. Like, you know, I'd love to say to my kids, every school holidays when they get old enough, all right, here's $500 each. You're the ones in school. You find me a viral product. You tell me what your friends are buying. I'll give you the outlay for it. You present to me a business plan with an ROI, how much you want to return, how much you're going to make on each product, how much the product costs you, how long it's going to take you, how many sales you need to do it. Come back with that with me. Beautiful. When you're done, give me my $500 back. That's your own. Plus, I'll take a $50 for that. So give me $550 back, and the rest of the money's yours. You know, just little things like that we never had.
You're teaching them the fish instead of giving them the fish.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important for this next generation, because they are given a lot of things, and we're not taught, especially we weren't taught any of this.
Yeah.
Now, for us learning it, we need to teach our kids that, and it's creating the platform and the opportunities for them to learn and to grow. And it's like, I create this business, this media business called my podcast. Whether my kids want to come into it or not, that's totally up to them, but it's there for them to step into if they want to do videography or podcasting or anything like that. It's like that platform's there for them, whether they take it or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's what our job is as a parent, as a dad, is to build that strong foundation for our kids to build upon themselves.
And we're in a new world now. Like, we'd be so pig-headed to not let a kid try something, because look how many kids now own YouTube channels that are paying their mum and dad's bills.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, it's just a new way forward, and I don't think we know exactly what's coming, but the ability to be able to go with the flow and to move in the right direction will be
I want to go back a bit to some of the stuff we spoke about at the beginning quickly around your parents. And first of all, like, super grateful for your mum and what she did for you. Like, it would be hard to be the mum and the dad. So I'm sure you have a lot of love and gratitude towards your mum. What's your relationship like with your dad now? Do you have a relationship with him?
No.
By choice?
His choice.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that still impact you to this day?
Sometimes. He made the decision, well, I guess he does make the decision. When I was in jail, he come to me and he said, "Son, I'm dying." I said, "Wow." He said, "He had cancer or something." He goes, "I don't want to die if you're Muslim." You know what I mean? Because he's got different views. So I think that stuck in his head. I don't know what it is, but getting out of jail, ironically, when I become the best version of myself, he wasn't around, you know? So for me and my din, when I want to go doing Hajj, so go to Mecca and travel around there, before I do that, I have to seek forgiveness from my parents. So regardless of where we're at now, I have to still keep trying. But he's at a place now where he's, for whatever reasons, in his own head, and I don't hold that against him, but I know it's going to have to be me to bridge that gap. And I've tried, and I'll keep trying, but it's just, I don't know, it's just one of them things.
Did your mum accept your conversion to Islam?
Now she has, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, mum's really good.
Yeah, okay.
You know.
Yeah, that would be a very hard dynamic, especially if that generation, usually they're so strong in their faith, and then for their child to go in a different way, like, that goes against everything that they know.
Well, mum was in some ways strong Catholic at the time, and my dad is a Christian or a Protestant or a Seventh-day Adventist, one of these things. Well, nothing to say about it. Well, what I will say is, briefly, whether I'm right or wrong, sometimes I feel like the old school Africans have adopted the religion of the people that enslaved them and used that religion to enslave them, briefly. And I feel like that they're so stuck on some of these other streams of religion, of Mormons and Seventh-day Evangelists and stuff like that, that they're just so against anything else. And he's just been hard. His heart's been hardened, I think.
Fuck. I have so much empathy towards him as well.
You do?
Yeah.
Why?
Even though, like, because he's stuck in that mindset. I'm not saying his actions are right.
Yeah.
Like, it's because it's also sad. Like, what if and when he passes away and he hasn't connected with you and you haven't both made peace with what's happened throughout that your journey together? Like, you go into the grave with that. And I think no one should go to the grave with regret. It's fucking sad.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Some people are just stuck in their mindsets, and I guess it's up to my obligation to just continually try. There's not much more you can do.
That's all you can do, bro. Is just turn up as your best self, and if he wants to reconnect down the path,
Inshallah.
Yeah, man, this has been an amazing conversation, bro.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for coming in here with an open mind and to share what you've shared. It's definitely going to have an impact on whoever listens and the youth. It's giving a different perspective, as we said throughout this whole podcast. Like, you don't have to go down a path of crime. You can do business and all these different avenues, because now there's people like yourself doing it.
Yeah.
So, man, thank you. And we have a closing tradition where the previous guest leaves a question for the next guest.
Who was your previous guest? Not Benny Salgado.
No, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. No one knows who it is, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, what would future you or current you go back and tell your 20-year-old self?
What would I tell myself? That's a hard question, because I wouldn't want to advert the course that I took. My advice to myself would be find God and be patient. Because I think that I needed to make every mistake that I did in the order that it happened. Because I couldn't sit there and tell you like, oh, do this, do that, and you'll be fine. Because for me, it had to be an act of God. At 22, 23, I had a $200,000 hit on my head. Most of the people on that list are dead. Some are in jail. Some still getting shot at. One's in jail now, accused of allegedly killing another person on that list. So the way I got off it was nothing but a miracle. I was in the right time in the right place, and all the random things that happened to me, I have to attribute to God. So my advice to myself back then would be get into your din, find your religion, and find yourself.
Find God and be patient. I think that's a beautiful way to end this podcast, man. Thank you.